In this video, I want to share with you 5 things I wish I would have prioritized more in my piano learning. I think these are things that would have helped me to learn piano more comprehensively and faster. And I actually have evidence for some of the things I'm about to share because some of my students that are with me for 2 years can do things that I last time could only do in my 5th year of piano playing. So I think it's important to get all these kind of stuff right from the start of your piano playing. Number 1, chords are everything. Chords are everything. If I were a beginner piano student again, I would focus extra hard on learning and understanding chord structure. I've been trying to think about an analogy to help people understand the function of chords in music, and I think here's a good one. So think about a whole bunch of Lego blocks, and chords are sort of like learning how to build simple structures. For example, this apple tree or this watermelon. So learning chords is kind of like learning how to build these simple Lego structures, which you can then later use to build even more complex, bigger Lego structures. And once you have this skill of seeing music from the lens of chords, music doesn't become so scary anymore because all you see are these sort of simple structures that you already understand. I'm going to play 2 very short chord progressions for you, and I want you to listen to them and tell me which one sounds more satisfying. Without going into too much detail, the second one sounds more satisfying because it ended on a chord 1. So in this little short piece of music, it's set in C major, which means there's no sharps, no flats, it's all white notes. So in the second example I played, the final chord was this. So in this chord, there are the notes C, E, and G, which in the C major world is chord 1. Now, when you give time to study triads and chords, you start to see patterns such as this one that I just shared with you, which is that music often ends with chord 1. And when you realize patterns such as this, it's almost like you develop your musical 6th sense, where you can anticipate what the next chord coming is. And then this then helps you to then side read it with more ease, and the whole musical creating experience becomes easier. So I highly recommend everyone to start working on chords. Just start with majors. So in a major scale, let's say in C major, you want to know this is chord 1, chord 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then start to play around with going from each chord to the next. For example, if I want to go from chord 1 to chord 4 to chord 5 to chord 1, this is called a 1, 4, 5, 1 progression. So some chords go well to some, and some don't really go well to others. For example, if I do something like 1, 4, and instead of going to 5, I go to 7, and then go to 3, 2, 5, 7. You know, it just sort of sounds a little bit weird. Another better example could be something like going from 1, and I love going to 6 from 1, and then let's say going to 2, to 5, and then our favorite one to end on a 1. If you're finding this video helpful, make sure you subscribe to this channel. We do loads of free piano tutorials and content here, so make sure you stay in touch by subscribing. Second thing I wish my piano teacher prioritized with me more is to do more of a practice method called the AAR method. I'm going to talk about it slightly here, but if you want an in-depth video, you can click over here. AAR stands for Absolute Accuracy Rule. Now, most piano beginners I see practice piano something like this. This is a bad way to practice piano. This is something what I like to call gambling, which means you are basically executing notes without this kind of deep thought and complete awareness of what you're actually doing on the piano. You're simply just kind of trying your luck and gambling with your notes and hopefully trying to execute the correct note. And you sort of try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times without that sort of slow down, small little sections and thinking very deeply. What I teach my students to do, and they get incredible results in just 5 minutes of practice, is this absolute accuracy rule where they 100% prioritize the right notes. So you're allowed to throw rhythm and the sense of pulse out the window, but you must play the right notes. For example, you might start with a section like this. So you saw there that I took my time with all the notes, and in the time where the notes strike with both right and left hand, I just paused a little bit and gave myself time to think very deeply and then execute it successfully. So once you master that, you might upgrade to something like this. So what you saw there was I took my time to find the right positions, get over there, think about it, and execute correctly. So a little game I like to play with my students is they actually must play the sections that I set them, and they can be as small as this. They have to play it between 5 to 7 correct times before they can move on to the next section. So we absolutely make sure that they understand the position changes, they understand what notes need to be played before they can move on. So there's no sense of gambling at all. We know it 100% what to play. You must give this one a try. I think this will do wonders for your improvement. Number 3, I wish in my piano journey I worked more with a metronome. I work with adult learners all the time, and I feel that keeping in beat is something that some adults just do pretty naturally, and some adults just need a bit of work on. The students that can keep in beat would play something like this. And some students who can't quite keep in beat might play something like this. So for the students that can't keep in beat, I always do this one thing that immediately helps them to keep in beat. And what I do is I just very gently tap their shoulder like this. So I'm standing around here, and as they're playing the piano, I just tap the beat on their shoulder. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's sort of funny, and it's really great. I probably need to write a blog article on it or something. But when the student feels the sense of beat and touch on their shoulders, suddenly they're just able to have this really stable and consistent sense of pulse. I think 2 groups of people have a really good sense of pulse and rhythm, and they are dancers and drummers. And that's because these 2 categories of people, they do a lot with their bodies, with the beat. Now for piano players, because the action of us striking keys isn't as dramatic as a dancer or a drummer, sometimes it's a bit harder to just keep that very consistent sense of pulse, especially when there are a lot of notes that your brain just needs to allocate space to process. So if you have time, maybe you can try some simple dance moves, or maybe you can try drumming if you ever see a drum kit. If you want a really simple way to feel the beat in your body, such as dancers do or drummers do, or like I was saying, how I tap the beat on my students, you should try this Soundbrainer watch that I've been using myself and also with my students too. Many of our subscribers have already had success with this, so I want to do another plug for them. The device works really simply. You tap a simple beat on it, and it sends a very strong vibration on your wrist. Super helpful for keeping in beat and building your sense of pulse. 4th thing I wish my teacher worked on more with me is to sight read more. More specifically, to do a little bit every day and to start sight reading very, very easy pieces first. In my piano learning journey, in the first 5 years, I was always more of a listener, which meant I always tried to play by ear and rely on my oral and hearing skills to play piano rather than to read it. Now, this was really good. It really helped me to develop a strong sense of hearing and to be able to play by ear pretty quickly. But it was at a huge cost of my reading skills. After about 5 years of playing piano, I realized I hit a pretty significant limiter, and it was hard to really go up, because what it meant was I had pretty decent technique, but I couldn't really sort of learn the harder pieces because I just took ages to read and learn pieces because I was so not used to reading music. This fourth point actually relates also to point number one, if you remember, that chords are everything. When I wasn't sight reading much, I wasn't exposing myself to visually processing and playing these chords. What that meant was when I was learning these pieces, I had to sort of one by one try to figure out what those notes are, which took ages. Now my reflection as a better sight reader is when these chords come into the picture, I sort of am able to just pull them out immediately because I've played them and visually process them a lot. I should have done this way earlier in my piano journey so that the rest of it would have been easier. I want to take this chance to also give a slight disclaimer and warn people against synesthesia. I think synesthesia is a really great way if you want to quickly learn some of the notes to the songs you love. But because synesthesia is very individual, notes falling focused, I think it's really going to limit your piano improvement once you hit a certain stage. I think synesthesia is okay if you want to use it occasionally, but I recommend you to sight read simple pieces first, build that chord exposure and chord understanding scales, understanding music theory. I think you'll just become a more complete and comprehensive musician, which will then allow you to have longevity in your piano journey because you understand it and you have a more secure system to process this complex world of music. Down to our final fifth thing that I wish my piano teacher worked on with me, and it is to learn how to set high goals, but also to learn how to have fun. As you progress higher and higher in piano, you'll start to learn more and more complex pieces. And sometimes when you learn really, really difficult pieces, it's pretty easy to burn out. It's pretty easy to then start to get a bit sick of the piano. So I wish in those times I would have learned how to just simply have a bit of fun with the piano and not to take it so seriously. And I would argue for also the opposite. You need to pull from the opposite end as well. If you're always sort of having fun and not really giving your brain a challenge, eventually I think you're going to give piano up because it just isn't much of a stimulating exercise for you every time you come to the piano. You need to also have some challenges that are unachievable now, but you want to achieve in the future. For example, if you're a complete beginner, you should check out this video where I share some of the pieces I think you should eventually aim to play within 2 or 3 years. There are pieces such as and eventually even to something like River Flows in You. So just to sum up this number 5, it is to have really high goals, but also to learn how to have fun, to pull from opposite ends. In summary, here are the 5 things I wish I prioritized more. I'm wishing you can prioritize them in your journey. Number 1, chords are everything. Try and learn them and understand them. Number 2, practice with the AAR method, which is to prioritize correct notes in small sections, but 100% correct notes before you move on to the next section. Number 3, to prioritize a good sense of beat and pulse. Number 4, to sight read a little bit every day and start with really simple ones first. Build on success. Every time you have success, you'll feel good about it and that will keep you motivated to do it for longer. So do really easy ones first. And number 5 is to pull from opposite ends, to have really high goals for yourself, but also learn how to have fun and relax on the piano because the piano is a very, very fun and happy instrument. We have a bunch of videos here that teach people how to play piano better. If you like this content, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like it, and I'll catch you in the next video.